Joining us now on Texans Radio, it's Nick Caserio. Nick, how's it going?
Fellas, good to be here.
It's good to be in Houston. The joint practice is canceled. All right, why don't we get into that a little bit, how that came about. D'Amico Ryan said some things about it. I know it affects the entire organization, though, support staff included.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are involved in something like this. I think it's very similar to what happens during the course of the regular season. You kind of have a schedule, a plan of how you think things may or may not go, but the reality is you always have to be able to adjust and adapt to the circumstances. So we talked about it after the game. D'Amico talked to Dennis, then we kind of decided in the end this was kind of the best thing, for us. So it's a good opportunity for us. D'Amico mentioned this the other day, just to kind of go through sort of a regular season week here. It's kind of dry run in terms of scheduling, planning, how to treat the off days, some of those types of things. So have a lot of respect for the Saints organization. Dennis, Mickey's been there a long time. So, the fact that they had enough flexibility and were receptive to the idea, I think in the end everybody's just trying to figure out what's the best situation for their individual team. So looking forward to the challenge that they present as a team on Sunday. And we'll reevaluate each year as we go. I think we certainly got a lot out of the practices against Miami, probably would have got a lot out of the practices against the Saints. I think just as we looked at the arc of the week and kind of where we were as a team with certain spots, just felt in the end this was the right thing, for us and the players.
Nick, in totality, the week against the Dolphins, from the two joint practices to the game, obviously there are a lot of learning moments in the game that fans got a chance to see, but the joint practices as well. How did you think the week went?
Yeah, interesting. Wednesday had a pretty good day, both sides of the ball. Thursday, probably Miami had the edge, and then the game, in the end, Miami had the edge. And I think some of the things that showed up during the course of the week, some of the things that we can certainly improve or get fixed, those manifest themselves in the game a little bit, which that's the reality of what the NFL is. If you do the things you need to do on a weekly basis, give yourself a chance. If you don't, you're probably going to be in a little tougher situation. So, didn't turn the ball over. We were able to get the turnover, but didn't take advantage of the field position there. And then kind of the long run at the end of the half, a couple of the long runs kind of, made the score look the way that it did. So, but we were able to evaluate some players. I think one of the things that you've seen some players improve. You've seen some players take advantage of their opportunity. So it's really one day at a time, 1 week at a time. And then whatever the opportunity is, it's up to the players to go out there and perform. And we'll talk about this probably a little bit closer to next week. So as we look to the roster, it's not about 53 players. It's going to be more than 53 players. So we're probably going to have some players that are off the roster that can provide some depth. We're going to have some players on the roster that provide some depth. They may or may not be ready to play. So it's getting the right players with the right mindset, with the right mentality that we feel at some point we're going to be able to use any given Sunday.
Nick, joint practices, you can work on a lot of stuff. Tackling is probably not one of them, as there's just sort of a wrap-up kind of mentality. Is that one of those things that only game experience can improve?
Yeah, it's a great point, Mark. Probably early in the year, tackling is probably one area you'll probably see a lot of bad tackling, but it's something that you can drill, something that you can work on. Really, tackling is about a mindset, it's about technique, it's about body position, it's about leveraging the ball. So it goes back to, and D'Amico's talked about this endlessly, in the end, it's about basic fundamentals and techniques. So how you approach the ball, how you attack the ball, how you practice tackling without bringing them to the ground. It's getting in the right position, the thud, the wrap. You just can't drive them to the ground. So once you get into a game, you're going to either tackle well or not tackle well. So, tackling is always something that you can improve. But early in the year, I'd say tackling is one of those probably skills or areas that not everybody is probably as equipped as they should be. But the more you play, and the more you get in game situations, can teach off of it. Hopefully you can improve as the year progresses.
Nick, how's the preseason life changed? And this is what I mean. For a long time, when there were 4 preseason games, there was a ramp up to game 3. You saw a little bit more of the starters, quote unquote, in game 3, but then by game 4, it was you're getting ready for a regular season. There was a lot of guys fighting for last roster spots getting at game 4. Has it changed the way that you look at it? Is it still a ramp up to game 3, or is it every team is looking at it differently based on where they are in their evolution?
Yeah, it's a good point, John. I think as you look at the league, every year it kind of changes what the team's philosophy is, how they approach it. I think the way Coach Reed approaches it in Kansas City has been consistent, how he plays. And I think when you look at what Coach McVay's done with the Rams, they've had a different philosophy previous years. This year is a little bit different because they have a little different dynamic. I think really what you're doing is evaluating your team dynamic. Where are you as a team? What do you think you need to do to best prepare yourself for week 1? What players do you really need to get a good evaluation of playing football? So I think there's a lot of things that go into it. To your original part of the question, it's just shorter. You have less practice opportunities before the first game. So it doesn't mean it's the same for everybody.
Sure.
So there's still 3 games instead of 4. The reality is you include the ramp up, there's less really practices that you have. So each year is different, but you're still trying to put a foundation in place, get your system in place, give the players an opportunity to go out there and compete for different spots, evaluate players that you really need to see play, and then try to get the team ready for week 1. So you're doing a lot of things all at once. And really, I think the focus is where you are as a team and what do you need to get done and what do you need to get accomplished, and then you build a preseason plan accordingly.
Well, and the plan changed this week, obviously. Can you discuss the benefits of being home this week instead of on the road and the game week kind of feel that there is going on right now with the practice schedule and everything else?
Yeah, no, it's as close to a game week as we can get. So we'll work against ourselves, but a part of that, we're working off of cards, so which we'd have to do during the regular season as well. So we're going to service one another. So there'll be a good-on-good component where our offense works against our defense, but there'll also be our offense versus New Orleans defense and vice versa. So the process that goes into that, you have an opportunity to introduce that to your players. Here's what we need in this situation. Here's what we need on that look. Certain players are going to be asked to do more than others in those respective spots. So let's say that's part of it, Mark, and then the other is just the actual scheduling. So what we're going to do lifting-wise, how we're going to handle the team, what do you do on your off day, how do you structure your day. So the first time you do it isn't the week of Baltimore, because even once we get through, New Orleans, we'll cut the team down Tuesday, then we have Wednesday, Thursday, then the players are off for a mandatory 3-day period, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then we'll come back Monday. So as best we can, we'll try to simulate what a normal week would look like during the course of the week. Practice during the week. Friday is a little bit of a lighter day. Travel on Saturday, play the game on Sunday, come home, and have your day after the game. So that's probably where we are. So we'll try to maximize it and get as much out of it as we possibly can.
I feel like we need to remind fans, listeners, followers this every year. The 53-man roster isn't something that you walk like, the 10 Commandments, like, this is our roster. We've talked about this. It's a fluid process all the way along. But at some point, Nick, you do have to say, at this point in time, you are the 53 guys on this roster. When for you does that sort of crystallize in your mind? Okay, I feel like these guys are going to be on the roster. These guys, man, maybe we need to see a little bit more. When does that sort of crystallize in your mind? Does this become the week, or is it before this? When does it kind of happen for you?
Yeah, we're pretty close. We talk about it as a staff. D'Amico and I, as a matter of fact, talked about it this morning. Yeah. We've kind of talked about it on a regular basis each week. The reality is you're probably 75, 80% there after week 1, candidly. And there are going to be some things that crop up. Injuries may force you to make a decision somewhere else. So really it's just about managing numbers, managing the roster a little bit. And you're prepared for whatever we have to do next week. I mean, you're moving on from players, but you're really not moving on from players because some of the discussion is, hey, look, we can't carry on the roster. We want to continue to work with you in a practice squad. Come back tomorrow at noon, and if you're not claimed, then as if nothing changed. So there's that period of uncertainty for a player. Well, do they want me here? Where am I going to be? But the reality is we're going to want to work with more than 53 players that are on the actual roster. So I think the big thing from our perspective is just be honest with the communication, to kind of tell them where they are. It's not an end. It could be a start for a lot of people. So I think it's just how you articulate it and how you present it. And I think if you're just sincere and honest with the players, they appreciate that.
It's got to be interesting because we discussed this a bit with D'Amico. Sometimes you're saying goodbye for now. It could be 24 hours, but it could be another year or so, and they're back. You never know. Dare was here before, Jacob, Martin, and those are just 2 examples.
No, you really never know. Exactly. I think it's a great point. So that's why you just try to be honest and fair and understand that it's a hard time for everybody when you go through this this dynamic. It's not easy. It's not easy on the players, not easy on the coaches, not easy on the staff. It's hard on their families. So we're cognizant of that. We all have a job to do. I think we all understand when we enter this business, there's going to be some difficult situations or discussions that you're going to have along the way. So try to handle it as professionally, as respectfully as you can. I think the players appreciate that. And you never know. You're closing the book. There's times when a player is going to come back, but there also might be a time where you're closing the book for good. So
Right.
Always keep an open mind, always keep the door open, and just try to make the right decision and a good decision for the team at the present time.
Okay, so my favorite segment, and you know what it is, every single week that we sit down with you, we're playing the insert name of team here. I say give us a
Nobody's
going to
play, but we'll go through it.
But like your scouts, you send them out to do advanced work, right? And so they do the work so that when it comes time to say, hey, give me the grade on this guy, they've already done the work. Well, we play the Saints later in the year. You just have to do your work now. You have to be early.
Exactly.
But I know you know this team. I don't know who will play, but just the Saints in general, whether we're going to see these guys or not. What about this team? What's kind of the scouting report on the Saints?
Yeah, a really good football team with a lot of good players. And I think they have a fairly well-established program, even though Coach Payton isn't there. I'd say there's a lot of remnants and a lot of hallmarks of Sean and the imprint he left on the program. I think when you start with Mickey, Mickey's one of the longest tenured, I think, general managers in the NFL. Has done a great job building the team. Coach Allen has kind of been there at different points. They've made some key acquisitions here, I would say, over the last few years. Obviously, signing Derek in the offseason was big. Mike's coming back offensively. I think Olave is as good of a player that nobody really talks about at his position. They kind of reshaped the tight end position here a little bit. And they got Kamara is probably one of the best, say, all-around backs that there is in the league. I think they're working through some things on the offensive line. Got some good players. Also have some things they're trying to figure out, on their end. But they've had a lot of good players in that program for a long time. And then defensively, I mean, Cam Jordan's a player who honestly not a lot of people talk a lot about. He's probably going to go down as one of the greatest players in the history of the organization. Just extended his contract so he can retire as a Saint. They've probably had more changes on the defensive side of the ball than maybe they have offensively. Drafted Brzee, the Clemson kid, in the first round, who we did quite a bit of work on. So good front. Demario Davis is another player who's been a really solid, steady, consistent player. Drafted Alante Taylor in the second or third round last year. Roby's there. Lattimore is one of the better corners in the league. So they're a very talented team when you actually look at them, top to bottom. So be a good challenge regardless of who plays or who doesn't play. They've played Jameis offensively. Jameis is basically him and Hainer have taken the snaps here, in the preseason. So it looks like they have a pretty good group of quarterback top to bottom. So experienced team with a lot of high quality players with an influx of, let's say, some youth. Drafted Kendre Miller, the TCU kid there in the middle rounds this season. So it's a good football team with a lot of talented players. So we'll see him this week, and then to your point, John, we'll see him a little bit later on. So it'll be interesting to kind of see, be a good kind of initial introduction to the team as we go.
What about the environment? Because as a preseason game goes, this is a pretty raucous setting, which is good prep for Baltimore in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it has a tendency to be very loud in there. Been in that stadium a number of times, not on the right end, and you basically get run off the turf and you can't hear yourself think sometimes. So, it's a loud environment. It's indoor. I think the difference is indoors versus outdoors, but I'd say Baltimore's outdoor venue is as loud as an outdoor venue is in a league. So there'll be some things that we can experience being on the road, being in a loud environment, being in a hostile environment, and see how the team handles it. So never an easy place to play in New Orleans. Won't be an easy place to play in Baltimore, week one.
All right. There's nothing you can do about it now, Nick. I was curious about this, and I'm going to use 2017 as an example. In 2017, when you were with New England, we had joint practices with you guys up at the Greenbrier. Then flew here and played a preseason game, and then we played you guys in week 3. I can't remember what week we played the Saints, but are there any issues of playing a team in the preseason versus playing a team in the regular season? I mean, you may not see the same players, but is there anything to be gleaned from, hey, we played in preseason, hey, we need to be on the lookout for this? Is there anything with that at all?
Really, the big thing is probably maybe more operationally.
Okay.
How they sub, the pace of sub, how they do it, signal, don't signal, some of those types of things.
Yeah.
The schematics, you're going to see things in preparation going into the game from the weeks before, however weeks it is. And in the end, it's a very personnel-driven league and matchup week to week. So how they deploy their people, maybe how they use them, those are some of the things that they're going to kind of, as you go, you'll see. But it's probably more an operational front. For the most part, it'll be pretty vanilla, whatever your system is, your system. You're not all of a sudden just going to come up with a brand new system 6 weeks from now or however long we play them. So more than anything, you're just maybe a smidge more familiar with the players and the operation, just their cadence of maybe how they play offensively, how quick they get to line of scrimmage, how quick they get into play in a huddle, those types of things.
So I got this question. Somebody said, it's a young team, right? The Texans. And I said, yeah, they're a young team, but got some vets at key position groups all over the place. So how would you characterize what you've seen so far? I know we're not down to the cuts yet and all of that, but based on what you've seen in camp, Nick, so far.
We're a hybrid, I guess, of young and old. So, a number of the veteran players that we signed in the offseason have come in and done a great job with, I'd say, their play, their performance, their leadership, and then I think the attitude of the younger players from the time they walked in the building to now has been exemplary. So, I think we're happy with the people that are in the building. We brought them in here for a reason, and they've been able to kind of blend or work well together. So we're still kind of in the infantile stages of just really putting this team together for the 23 season. We're getting close to the end here, but it's taken a lot of work. Everybody's had the right mindset and the right attitude. In the end, it's about just taking it one day at a time, just trying to do the right things consistently over the course of a long period of time. But the players have done everything that D'Amico and the staff have asked them to do with the right mindset. And in the end, it comes down to execution. Are you doing the things football-wise you need to do to win football games? I would say the other night was a good example. We didn't do enough. There were some positives, but we didn't do enough from a football standpoint. So can we improve on some of those things, get some of those corrected, and then build on some of the things that we did well? And that's where you really want to see your team make strides and move forward.
Nick, I think you have to find a way to bring Will Anderson out of his shell. I think he's holding back a little bit. I kid about that. Week 1 is Baltimore, and it's going to be here a lot sooner than we think. What's the process, Nick, for getting ready for Baltimore right now? And I know it's not this week, and it's a couple weeks, but still, it's gonna be here. What's kind of the process in getting ready for Baltimore, especially breaking in a new offensive coordinator, new offensive scheme with Lamar, et cetera?
Yeah, no, we have resources allocated to watching. We were at Baltimore's first preseason game. Probably had something. We're working on really the first 3 in-season opponents. Mm-hmm. So by the time next week rolls around, we'll pretty much have the team evaluated. We'll have the reports written. So we're focused on the league, but we're also hyper-focused on that first opponent, getting prepared for that, understanding there's going to be a newness element that's involved Baltimore-wise, especially offensively. Yep. So there's a player component, but really more schematics with Coach Monken and his addition to the staff. And then defensively, second year for Coach McDonald there, what they do. They've kind of have some new players. They've been dealing with a lot of things in training camp, similar to most teams, dealing with players that are in, that are out, that are injured, whatever they're dealing with. So, we're certainly preparing for multiple things at once, getting ready for New Orleans from a football playing coaching standpoint, but then we also have the scouting staff kind of looking ahead to Baltimore a little bit, starting to build a scouting report on that. So by the time the New Orleans game is over, we flip the page and we start to get ready for Baltimore. Yep. And then once their team is put together, knowing who the players are on the 53 and also knowing who the players are on the practice squad, because at any point those players can be elevated.
Yep. Nick, if I go on a Cafe Du Monde run, how many beignets should I get for you? Johnny,
you're asking the wrong question. You can give mine to John.
You're asking the wrong question.
I haven't been to New Orleans very often.
So have you had a Cafe Du Monde beignet?
I don't think I have. I know that shocks a lot of people.
I wouldn't start. Yeah. It's don't start. Just say no.
It's a bad one.
They're highly have it for
bad
me.
One.
Char-grilled oysters at Drago's.
Ooh.
Okay, that's good too, but probably not on your menu these days.
Probably not.
Any days. Nick, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.